Hello and thank you for joining me. Today's video is going to discuss different techniques of hanging so that you can improve your shoulder flexibility and overall shoulder health. Hopefully after watching this video you get some new ideas on either specific exercises and drills that you can incorporate into your practice or just general concepts that you can start to include. I think hanging is fantastic for overall stretching, relaxation, building strength, building flexibility, a ton of things. So definitely if you're not already hanging in your physical practice, I think it's something to include. If you are, it's just hopefully you get some different ideas of how to approach it. So as far as equipment, whatever you can hang from is fine. If it's a bar, no problem. If you're in your apartment and you have a doorway pull-up bar, that's fine too. I'm going to be doing most of the exercises today on the rings, and I do prefer the rings for most of these hanging drills if you do have a pair available, because it just allows for more versatility. The issue with the bar is that it's fixed, so you can't really explore as well. It's hard to change different things about the hang on the fly. You have to get up to switch your grip. It's not as versatile, but the rings, they allow for rotation, they allow for movement in different angles, so I think it's much more conducive for my personal style of flexibility training, which involves, again, a lot of exploration and finding possibilities with how you can move. That being said, we'll get into the exercises. There's a few kind of main hanging concepts that I'm going to talk about, and then a couple bonus exercises that kind of fall into the categories, but also stand a little bit by themselves. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first exercise is just standard basic hang. You're gonna grab something overhead, whatever it is, if it's the bar, if it's the rings. Again, my preference is the rings because that rotation gives you an extra element of play. And just gonna take your feet off the floor, and in the beginning, just let everything relax. Let gravity pull you down. If you have, these aren't quite as high as they could be right now, so my legs are slightly bent, but if you can also have something high enough where you can relax your legs, just hang and let gravity pull you. This is the easiest thing to do, and even just in doing this, I'm getting a grip workout right from the hang, and I'm also getting a pretty powerful stretch of the shoulders. And this is something you can just do very passively, and there's a lot of benefit to it. Now, one thing you can do to improve that extension and that length you get in the shoulders is to actively push upwards, kind of like what I would do in a handstand, is instead of just being passive, I'm reaching, and it may not look any different, but if you do it right, it should feel different. So as I extend my shoulders, I can get a more powerful stretch and a little bit more extension into that position. As far as rotation, I wouldn't worry about it yet. For now, you just kind of let your hands and arms rotate wherever they would. And this is something, if you want to do it for a couple minutes a day, you can. If, again, I'm a big fan of doorway pull-up bars, so if you just hang a pull-up bar in your doorway, and every time you walk by it, you just do a little bit of a hang. That's a great way to include this into your daily life, and then you can get a bit more shoulder flexibility work. Now, another really good variation of this full hang is adding a tuck. So when I add a tuck and lift the knees up, what should happen is that the hips are going to go back a little bit. Tuck is going to cause a posterior pelvic tilt to happen. And naturally, when you probably hang, there's probably a bit of arch in your back, similar to how you are when standing. When you do that tilt, but keep the shoulders in the same position, it actually makes the shoulder stretch a little bit more intense. So hanging from here, I lift my knees up, but I don't change anything about the shoulders. I don't do any kind of pull, and this is really important because that's it's a different kind of training. It's not flexibility training if I'm pulling like this. So I keep that same position. I lift, I bring the knees up in front of me, and just by doing that, I already have a much more powerful stretch. For me, I'm feeling it a lot more in my pecs and in my ribs today. You might feel it in your lats as well, depending on the position, depending on the rotation. But this is a really good way to add another element. And then from there, if you want to do that same cue that we did earlier of even reaching the shoulders further and lengthening this just by holding it, it doesn't necessarily look like it, but it's a very, very powerful shoulder stretch and a bit of an ab workout as well, depending on how long you hold it. So those are a couple variations that you can do just in that basic hang that are going to help extend and stretch you out. And then another often unutilized element is the floor. Right? You don't have to be in a full hang to get a lot of benefit from the hang, and actually there's a lot more that you can do within the shoulders if you have your feet on the floor. Now, depending on your level of training and grip strength, this may be the main exercise for you, and that's fine too. But even if you are strong enough to hold yourself in a hang for extended periods of time, that doesn't mean you should discount the floor assisted hang, because what I can do here, just a light touch on the floor with my feet, I can play with different shoulder movements and shoulder positions and rotations that I wouldn't really be able to do if I was taking my full weight. I can do a little bit of side to side leaning, I can lean forwards, I can lean backwards, and this, first of all, it allows me to hold longer if I wanted to, but also it allows me to spend time and explore different positions, different possibilities for the shoulders. And it's that exploration which I think a lot of fitness programs are missing, because they have you do exercise A and then exercise B, and the exercise is very specific, which is absolutely great for achieving goals, but for really understanding a concept within your body and what it means to you, that exploration is really important. And what this floor foot assisted hang does is allow for that exploration, so you can really express different pathways that the shoulders can move within that hang. Now, if I take that same concept and lower the rings, before they were way above my head, now they're just barely above my head. Now what that allows me to do is go into even more angles. I can put more weight on my feet if I need that extra support for some of these odd positions. But there's that same idea. I can play with that rotation. I can lean to one side, lean to another side, lean backwards. This is actually a really good one for spine decompression, is if you elevate your feet like this in a pike and just let it hang, that's really good for stretching out your back, right? You can get some spinal extension this way, like a precursor to back bends. You can go into a kind of a side hang like this, fantastic lat and side stretch. So there's a lot of useful positions that you can do here, and one of the best things to do, again, I always recommend, is just play around, just hang. Don't have in your mind that you're going to do a specific exercise or drill. Just move in different ways and see what happens, see what you like, what you need, where your restrictions are. Really, really fantastic exercise. Difficult to do without rings. You can do this with a rubber band, which I'll go into later in the video, but it's very difficult to get that same freedom of motion if you're using a bar. But yeah, highly, highly recommended. Just explore. You're going to feel good afterwards. So the next hanging concept we're going to cover is called the German hang. Don't ask me about the name because I didn't come up with it. I'm not actually sure where it comes from. It's just what I've heard it called when I started doing this kind of training. So I've adopted the title. So German hang, you want the rings a little bit lower just in case, especially if you're not versed in this kind of hanging, because we're going to be in a shoulder extension, so it's really good for stretching out the chest and the bicep and the shoulders, but you have to be a little bit careful with how you approach it, again, especially if you're new to this movement. So one thing you can do is just go 1-2, and then the best way I think to start this one is with the foot supported German hang, and then I'll go into the skin the cat entry in a little bit. But basically my arms are behind me. I can keep my shoulders internally rotated, although later I'll talk about rotation to increase the stretch. And right here I feel the stretch a little bit, but it's not enough, so what I'm going to do is just slowly bend my knees. I don't even have to take weight off the feet. I'm just bending my knees, and see how that takes me deeper into that shoulder extension. And then when I feel a deeper stretch, I can hang out. I can play with the angles a little bit, but you're not going to have the same freedom in this position as you did in the typical overhead position. But that being said, you can still move around a little bit. You can still change the angle. You can rotate a little bit in the shoulders and see if you still have, even though it's end range, see if you still have some motion, some strength left over. And then if you're feeling good, you can slowly and gently lift the feet, hold, come down. Take this one slow. You definitely don't want to move fast, in particular with this exercise, because if you do, and again, you're not used to that position, there is a possibility of injury. There is a lot of pressure, specifically on the bicep, because the elbow is fully extended. So again, probably nothing's going to happen, but go slow, be careful, make sure you respect the exercise. And then the other way that's pretty standard for entering the for entering the German hang is by going into a skin the cat. So again, it takes a bit of control. So if you're not used to being upside down, hanging upside down, get a spotter if you need to, go slow. It all depends on your level of control and awareness. But you're gonna go legs through like this. And then here, I already have the full weight. And what I can do is just slowly lower down. I can go back up to build strength, or I can just finish it there and hang. And I can put my feet down and go into maybe a deeper hang than I would have if I was just hanging with my arms. And I can do a couple rounds of that. So I can put my feet down, breathe, go a little bit further, lift them up again. So I get a few different types of stimulus within that hang. One more of those. But yeah, this is a really, really good stretch for everything that's behind the shoulders. So you're gonna get the bicep, you're gonna get the chest involved, you're gonna get this opening, which feels really good after you do it, especially if you're doing a lot of pushing, a lot of planche type work. This is a really good thing to do to kind of stretch out the muscles that have been working so hard trying to push forward. Okay, and there's a really interesting variation that you can do if you take the rings even lower, like about chest height. I find works pretty well. So instead of the shoulders being all the way in extension, you can have the shoulders a bit more level with the body, and you can really isolate stretching the chest, which if you don't know you need this stretch, you need it. I think I've actually put out a video on this one before, but we're going to review it. So here, right, I can hang. I'm trying not to arch in my back. I'm trying to keep my my midsection isolated. And then what I can do is lean in different angles. I can lean away, and this is the cue that I'm doing to open up the chest further. So I'm already getting a powerful chest stretch. What I'm going to do is rotate out so my palms are facing away from me. And then just breathe. Breathe into the chest for a deeper stretch. You can hold, you can do rotations. Yeah, it feels a little bit different than the German hang, but it's still a very similar concept. But I find that one is amazing for opening up the chest. I can do whatever, 30 seconds, a minute of that, and right away you stand up straighter, you feel your posture better. So very, very good stretch that you can do that's a variant of the German hang. And then the final concept we're going to discuss in this video is the one-arm hang. Now I do feel I will talk about using straps to hang from, because the issue with the one-arm hang is that it's very dependent on your grip strength. So if you're doing it without the floor assist, it's hard to get all of the shoulder flexibility benefits if you're focusing really hard on your grip, and that's even if you have a strong grip. So I'm gonna hang from the ring, keep the weight on my feet. I can do that same concept that I did in the basic overhead where I extend further. I can do that same tucking concept where I pull my legs a little bit forward, and I can get a more powerful stretch here as well. And from here, I can do that same concept that we did on two arms, as I can lean and I can pull in different directions. I can even do this. I can even rotate through to basically a one-arm German hang and back, and I can make it as difficult as I want or as I need because I'm moderating the intensity with how much weight I put into my feet. So all of these are really fantastic exercises. Of course, if you're new to this concept, this is a more advanced variant of hanging. So go very slow with how you put the weight, with how you shift the weight, with how you move. If you notice that I'm moving a little bit fast, it's because I've already done this many times. So I know kind of where to move, where to explore, what my limitations are. If you do not know that for yourself yet, you're going to want to move a lot slower, especially in these positions, because you might be putting yourself in some vulnerable positions. So you do have to make sure that you're being safe and not putting yourself at further risk. But that being said, again, there's so much potential here. I can move and I can hit exactly the angle that I know where I need to get a good stretch. And it's specifically the one-arm variant with the rings that allows me this freedom to find that. Now, if you want to add a little bit more grip strength, I'm going to do it on the bar here because it's higher. You can, of course, just hang from one arm, and you can play with rotation and controlling rotation. But then what I feel like, I know the rings are on the way, sorry about that. What it feels like is it's no longer a flexibility exercise. I'm using a significant amount of grip strength to hold myself up, and it's very hard to focus on the shoulder. And if I do, there's a lot of other stuff going on, like what the abs are doing and the rotation and all of that. So I'm not saying don't do the one-arm hang like that. I think it's still a fantastic exercise. But the topic of the video is flexibility focused. So I think you get the most flexibility benefit with the one-arm hang if you keep your feet grounded and control all of the positions that you move into. Okay, here is kind of a bonus way to express the concept, another way to hang. I don't think it's better or worse. I just think it legitimately feels different. And because of that, there are other benefits. So I'm draping a rubber band over the bar, right? And then rather than grabbing the band, I'm looping the band around my wrist. So that way I don't have to focus too much on holding it. It doesn't hold itself, but you don't have to. You just have to close your hands basically, and that's it, instead of gripping it. And then I'm going to hang. And this band is a little bit light. And I think I'm almost out of frame, but barely. So this band is a little bit light. I would use a heavier band for this. But I can do that same concepts of exploring, but now there's space in the band to flex as well as my body. So that gives me kind of another degree of freedom of motion, and I can push in different directions. I can explore circles. I can pull apart, push together, and I can still just hang and use gravity as well. So this is also, again, not better or worse, but a really interesting concept. I originally learned it from Dick Hartzell many years ago, and he's an awesome guy. He had a lot of really good lessons to teach with these rubber bands. But this is another thing you can do to improve that overhead flexibility. You can do the same thing with the German hang, right? And I'm out of frame now, but it gives me more degrees of freedom and more range of motion, and it's also a little bit more gentle. So if you're a beginner trainee, this also gives you a little bit more cushion, a little bit more suspension to play with and explore. So if you have a band, this is another concept worth playing with in terms of hanging for shoulder flexibility. And then one final concept or piece of equipment that I want to discuss is the strap, the hand loops. And without going into too much background, so if you follow circus arts, there's a discipline called aerial straps. And a lot of the skills that you're going to see are very similar to skills that you would see in men's gymnastics on rings, but there's a bit more complexity. There's a lot of one-arm work, and the routines are a lot longer. So the idea with the aerial straps, again, this is a very, very basic breakdown, is rather than gripping and being at the mercy of your grip strength, which sucks if you're doing a long performance, if conditions are not in your favor. They put their hand in the loop and then they lock it in. And then this way, it doesn't really take any grip strength to hang, and then it's a lot safer because if I have to hang for a couple minutes at, very high up, again, I'm not at the mercy of my grip. If I pass out for whatever reason, I'm still locked in, so it's a lot safer. But what this does from the perspective of shoulder flexibility is it allows you to focus on the hang because none of my physical or mental effort is going into my grip. My hands are pretty relaxed, and just hanging like this is already more beneficial than hanging on the rings or the bars for simple flexibility because I can focus more on what's happening in my shoulders. I can do all of those same concepts, and you don't need a specific apparatus for this. You can even do this by grabbing the straps of your rings, although it's going to be a little bit rough on the wrist, but still very useful. A lot of the one-arm hang work, it's much easier to do on the straps, again, because you can focus. I'm not going into flexibility work right now, but if we were doing the flexibility work, you can focus a lot easier on what's happening in your shoulder because you don't have to worry about your grip. You don't have to waste unnecessary energy with it. Does that mean you shouldn't work your grip? No, it's still useful to have a strong grip and to be able to do a one-arm hang. It's just, again, we're focusing on flexibility, and to do that, it's actually easier to let go of the grip. So I'll put a link for these. These are basically hand loops that you can attach to anything, and these are rated. They are created by a circus artist, Stuart McKenzie, who's an awesome straps artist. I don't have a discount code. I paid full price for them, so this is just, again, an item that I use in my training that I think is useful. I can add a link to these. These are the aerial fitness bodies, hand loops. They're, again, low-cost option is just do the same thing with the nylon straps of your rings. However, these are nicer to grab onto because they have this coating. But yeah, really, really good concept as well because I think there is additional benefit in hanging from hand loops, especially if we're talking about flexibility work. And one other exercise that I like, kind of a bonus exercise, is kind of these monkey swings, this brachiation pattern. So I'm just swinging back and forth. I know my feet aren't in frame, but they're not on the ground. I can do it also with my feet on the ground, but this is a really nice kind of active, dynamic shoulder flexibility movement where I'm swinging back and forth. It is a little bit more advanced, but I feel a very powerful stretch when I get to that end of the swing before I come back. So that's also another movement that I really like to do. As always, show discretion. Don't do anything you don't feel ready to do. It's just another concept that I feel is useful in the realm of hanging for shoulder flexibility. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it. I hope you found at least one thing that you can take back into your practice to help improve your shoulder flexibility, strength, overall health. I think hanging is a very powerful concept, and this is just me sharing some of my perspective on my experience and some of the concepts that I find helpful. As always, when you see someone do this who's been doing it for a long time, don't try to directly copy them. Try to understand the concept and apply it to yourself, to your level of training and ability. It's always better to go slow and be overly conservative than try to move too fast and potentially hurt yourself. But that being said, yeah, I'm not trying to claim to be any kind of ultimate authority. All I'm doing is sharing my perspective and experience. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did and you wish to support my channel, you can purchase my some of my ebooks or instructional videos on Vimeo. I'll put a link below so you can find those. If you don't have any intention of helping support me financially, that's fine. I'll find other ways to pay my bills. But what you can do is like, share, subscribe, try to help other people see my videos and get the message. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.